In today's business update, we'll be talking about primarily all about Tesla, the good, the bad, the ugly. Now, obviously, Tesla has made a lot of headways in terms of introducing electric vehicles to the mass market, which is tremendous, and also offering an additional feature which cars can now self-drive itself uh, automatically in some instances. But is it fully automated? There are concerns regarding this feature, how Tesla is marketing. Anyway, we'll talk about that. And then, one thing that many consumers are not considering apart from actually buying it, since it's is it more environmentally friendly? Uh, Insuring your car is going to cost you more than a regular combustible engine here. And what's interesting, the full self-driving subscription, I have a beef with that. They're going to charge you an astonishing amount, similar to just buying a brand new car. Is it worth it? But we'll talk about that. And finally, it's not all, all doom and gloom for the Tesla company. Now they're offering other car makers to be able to supercharge or quickly charge your electric vehicles, whether you own a Tesla car or Ford or BMW or any EV vehicles in the market here. So let's start with that one. So as mentioned, for all of the intents and purposes that Tesla is offering to the mass market, offering self-driving capability or the full self-driving or FSD, which they have launched the beta 9.0 version. Now, I was apprehensive. Again, the key wording that they're using is full self-driving, and when you think of full self-driving, it's always synonymous with fully autonomous, right? That it can drive itself. Technically, it can drive itself, but not in all scenarios. So that's where the confusion is. And obviously, this is Tesla's marketing strategy to get people to buy into their products and buy it, and thinking that it can do those things, which it can at, up to a certain point, but not totally. Similar to how an airplane works, it has autopilot features, but do you let itself drive itself or fly itself in this case? And I think that's the same case here in Tesla here. Anyway, according to the article here at autoevolution.com, the article states that here's proof Tesla's FSD's beta 9.0 street testing is a calamity waiting to happen. So as I mentioned, so since they've released this, obviously people are going to test this feature if it indeed can do the things that it mentions that it showcase here. And I've seen several videos, obviously, paying for $10,000 for a feature is kind of ludicrous if you think about it, similar to almost buying a brand new car or a second-hand car in this case. And the key here is obviously the mode is supposed to help the driver experience, not completely remove the driving experience from the driver themselves. And what's interesting here is the system itself is somewhat erratic still, so it's not yet fully formed, it's still learning, and it has erratic behavior and can cause a high speed crash with another vehicle. Obviously, what Tesla is banking on is people using the technology so that the software updates, it will collect all the data necessary to make the necessary improvement in its next iteration moving forward. But the sad fact is, if you're the current adopters today, you haven't had the fully formed feature where if you were to be in an accident, do you blame the driver, do you blame the software, or do you blame the company in terms of whose fault is it for letting this accident waiting to happen? And the sad fact is, it's not just the driver who will be involved in an accident, other motorists will be involved. Hopefully there's no fatalities involved, but more often than not, especially in high speed collision, fatalities can be a problem here. And obviously blaming the car manufacturer Tesla here isn't exactly fair, but they're not absolved of their responsibility. The fact that they're the one marketing this as a full self-driving vehicle, the fact that it's only level 2 in terms of autonomous capability, there's still a long ways to go before they reach level 5 of fully autonomous vehicle. Sure, it could drive itself under normal circumstances. It can park itself. It can change lanes in highways or in under normal road conditions. But as a general rule, obviously, as a driver, you encounter several nuanced instances that it's difficult for a machine to learn it right off the bat. That's why they need data from the drivers who owns a Tesla to get those information so that it can disseminate those information. If you encounter this scenario, this is what the machine should do, and so forth. And who's the test guinea pig here? The owners of the Tesla, which is kind of risky if you think about it. So should you buy a Tesla here? Now, obviously, we haven't heard any disastrous incidents here, but it's a ticking time bomb that's waiting to happen here. And I completely agree with the article. And obviously, it's not just the maker who has a responsibility here. It's the owners who make a conscious decision to activate the system. So, do you need to educate them? More awareness and so forth, or does the government has to intervene and so forth? Now, we've heard reports before wherein responsible drivers, who try to test the limits of the automated full self-driving system, wherein a driver would sit at the back seat of the vehicle and let the car drive himself. And what if an accident were to occur? And he was quoted saying he will try to recover, but by then it's too late. Now, hopefully, at that instance, he was just given a ticket. I think his car was impounded at the time. And then at the other instance, there was an article, state highway police caught a person sleeping on the highway, noticing that person was tilting on the side of the, not on the windshield, but on the window itself. And then the car is driving by itself. And if something were to cross in front of it, or for whatever reason, disaster is just waiting to happen here. And obviously, paying for 10,000 for that additional feature, you want to be able to utilize it. Even if I were to pay for this amount of money, then I expect to see it working in perfect condition. So you want to get your money's worth here. Now, at what cost? And the FSD, or the full self-driving capability, is not level 5 autonomous, so it's not yet there, and it's a long ways. And many have said, even though Elon Musk has been stating that they're trying to get to that point, he's focused on going outer space, but their Tesla vehicle has not yet reached that level 3 or even level 4 autonomous capability here. Now, obviously, we love what Tesla is doing here, what Elon is trying to push the envelope here in terms of providing better technology, more innovation, which is why I like the concept of it's not just for the electric vehicles, but for all regular combustible engines to have those features that's trickled down to the different types of vehicles, and all consumers could benefit from it. And obviously, if you own a Tesla vehicle, it gives you the prestige, the early adopters, obviously it's something new. Obviously, you haven't seen a vehicle that can drive itself, wherein you normally see this in films where it can drive itself. But have we reached that point that you can, I think the film I saw in iRobot, where Will Smith was just sitting behind the scene and commanding the vehicle, do this, do that, and so forth. I think we're still decades away. Will be in our lifetime. Who knows? And again, there was an instance where a Tesla Model 3 showing attempting to make an unprotected left turn over a double 3-lane road with a driver. Now, take note, when you consider this actions of making a left turn unprotected, obviously there are vehicles passing through. So if you're a normal driver, you're very cautious. Obviously, even if you're an experienced driver, it takes a lot of practice and experience to know when it's time to nudge along before committing fully. Obviously, the machine cannot do that automatically, so it has to learn on its own. And from the video I saw this, I think it made several right turn, experiencing not committing, and then going to right, and then making a U-turn again, returning to that place. And I think it made 3 or 4 times before it actually committed, which is kind of scary, meaning you're trusting the machine, the AI here, to do the most riskiest maneuver in any road condition, which is crossing a lane where a lot of vehicles could be passing here. Obviously, you're relying on technology, on the machine's capability to adapt to the situation, and obviously lacking experience is the main issue, not just for the driver but for the AI itself, in this case the FSD here. And if you make one more wrong move, you know, lives could be lost here. And it's not just that. There was an instance, the Model 3 needs to cross a 3-lane traffic before merging with the leftmost lane on the other side. uh, yeah, as I mentioned, that it rejected that turn, and so you had to do it several times. So obviously, it's going to learn eventually, but if nothing happens, then good for them. But what if it made the wrong choice? By the time it made its movement, then there was a big, all of a sudden, an oncoming vehicle, whether it's a car or even a truck. You could just imagine, the head-on collision. I was scared to death seeing that when that car made that move along the way. Then there's another vehicle, another instance here where a second video where it shows the Tesla vehicle trying to merge onto a reasonably busy highway, which is again a complex scenario where it's not yet fully tested, fully vetted, that it can actually do those complicated maneuvers. And guess who's the guinea pig here? The drivers themselves. And under normal it would be understandable. That's why I think the marketing ploy of using full self-drive, I think it's at the very least semi self-driving, obviously doesn't sound nice, or even full assist, right? Or assisted self-driving vehicle, right? Because it still need an actual person who's attentive regarding the driving conditions here. And what's interesting here, a maneuver that a human would have no problem doing in the first place, right? But in this case, the camera failed to pick up a oncoming vehicle, in this case a Chevrolet Equinox, that was taking that spot by switching from the middle lane. So not to the left, not to the car is left, is an awkward position. So when it merged at the end, it's going way too quickly because it was trying to get in front of the vehicle here. So just imagine the ordeal if you were not just the driver but a passenger, relying on technology and an untested technology at that. Should that test feature be only implemented if it can do all the conditions rather than see what happens, similar to how games have been using this strategy of releasing unpolished game and then they're just going to do an update in the future. Now, a game obviously has no severe repercussions other than a terrible experience, but in driving condition, if the machine makes the wrong move, then it's game over, right? Anyway, and what's interesting here, the FSD, or the full self-driving mechanism, does it always does what it can, or it can follow the intended route. So it may go either way. So it's kind of risky. It's not as if it sees this scenario, it will follow this path and so forth. So it's kind of risky, and that's why I'm very apprehensive, of offering this technology. Maybe they need to do a lot more research, a lot more testing first before they sell it to the consumer here. And 10,000, is that worth your life here? I don't think that's way too risky on my part. And is Tesla going to be culpable here if indeed there was going to be an accident because of the faulty full self-driving capability here? And something is going to happen. And the sad part here is Tesla might not be even legally bounded or liable for this one, which is, the risk is always on the consumer, none on the company who made it. You're selling a feature that's not fully formed, then maybe government has to step in. Then it'll take a lot more time to do this rather than stop it at the gates before it gets to the consumer here. But we have to wait and see how it happens here. And at the end of the day, do you trust the capability of the individual here, whether a regular individual, a regular Joe, so to speak, would do the right thing here, or would they test the limits here, which they tend to do? Obviously, when you're using a computer, a desktop, PC, or any computer device, people will always tend to find the limits of its capability. And that's not even the bad part. So, assuming you bought a car, an electric vehicle at that you're going to use it for several years, or even hopefully for decades. Now the question is, once you buy a car, typically you need to buy insurance, right? So that for any accidents that do occur, you'll be protected here and so forth. Now, according to the article here at yahoo.com, everyone who's buying a Tesla, but are they prepared to pay for the insurance? Because it's not cheap, even though it can save you on gas. But how come it's expensive? Let's take a closer look. So, obviously, buying an electric vehicle would be a dream come true for many, and having the technical capabilities of self-driving features here. Now, question is, why would a Tesla cost more to insure than a regular gas fuel gas engine, since you'll be saving a lot of gas? Now, car insurance companies come up with the rate, but that's based on a lot of factors, as mentioned. Now, obviously, for an electric vehicle, the cost is more outright. The fact that it's going to cost a lot when you need to repair it. Obviously, it's not yet at the same level as a fuel-powered engine. So the repairability, the parts, and accessibility, especially the battery, is going to be expensive. So if any insurer were going to insure your vehicle, in this case a Tesla, you're going to have to pay a premium here now. Is it worth it? Even if you're a great driver or a careful driver. Anyway, even if the driver itself, or in this case you, the driver, you may be deemed low risk for filing insurance, but still the car and the driver goes hand in hand. So in this case, the person may not be at risk, but the car is, especially as mentioned above, that the items, if you need to replace it, it's going to cost you a lot of dollars, thousands of dollars here. So you might be paying more. So compared to a regular gas-powered vehicle, let's say you're paying $1,000 here, you may have to pay 20% more, around $1,180 here, or almost $1,200 there. So, is it worth it here? Obviously, if you really like the brand and the capabilities, then you'd be willing to pay a premium for this one. Now, obviously, another issue is not just the repair cost, is finding technical people who can fix your vehicles. So they're still very limited. So obviously, again, if there's a limited supply of people who can fix it, they can charge more for their services. That's why I think for many dealerships, especially for the initial part, they would charge more, especially the first few years of you buying the vehicle. But obviously, after the warranty wears off or has expired, then you'd like to have third-party service technicians that is ready available, that is not considered expensive to pay for their services. And one key component, as mentioned earlier, is the battery component, and it's not going to be cheap. And as we've discussed before, Tesla, there was an article where a driver got their a part of the battery pack got damaged, so they had to he was quoted of you need to replace the entire battery pack, which is almost the sum of a brand new car. And when he went to a third party tech shop, and they made a janky fix, which cost less than the actual car, I think around $700. And obviously, these are a rarity rather than normal occurrence, which a whole lot of issues that when you look at it, how come a very expensive or vulnerable item that's exposed underneath the vehicle was not properly protected? But anyway, so obviously replacing the battery is not as easy as, let's say, if your regular car battery, if you need it replaced, you just spend a few $100s here and there, then you're on the go. But in this case, it takes a lot. You have to replace the entire battery bay, change it, and then obviously the labor that comes to it, that's why it's going to cost you a lot. So, is it worth it? Maybe, maybe not. But still, obviously, electric vehicles has a lower maintenance expense overall, since you won't be dealing with fuel expense over a long period of time. But still, you have to deal with normal maintenance, with changing the tires, windshield, all the typical experiences that the car owner is. And obviously, selling that there's no emission because of the tailpipe, which is another problem with how they source the batteries, is another lesser of two evils, coal mining versus, nickel mining, or in this case, lithium ion mining here. But the question here is, where do we go from here? Should you still purchase it, or should you consider going back to a regular gas powered engine here? Again, there's no perfect formula until Tesla can find a better solution in terms of lowering the price, which they're trying to do, in fairness to them. So they're trying to scale up their production so they can reduce their cost here now. Whether that would translate to a lower price tag for the consumers here, we'll have to wait and see, because they've been relying so much in the subsidies from the government so that the cars are made more affordable here. If there's no subsidy here, it would be too expensive. So it would be only limited to a very few or limited target market here. Anyway, next, speaking of, again, Tesla again, we were talking about the FSD capability of the full self-driving, which is one of the issues already that you're offering this that's not yet fully formed. They're offering as a subscription base, which is, I'm not too thrilled about it. And according to electrek.co, Tesla is launching its FSD subscription. Can you guess how much? So you can, if you cannot afford the 10,000 price tag right off the bat, you can pay for $200 a month. So whether it's $200 a month or 10,000, why do I have to pay for an additional feature if I could get it right away? Normally, if you buy a regular vehicle, with the exception maybe boosting up for, for two turbochargers, so you can, the car would run faster. In this case, it's neither doing that. It's only giving additional features. In this case, autonomous driving for self-driving, autopilot features, parking features, and all of those goodies, right? But why can't that be included in the car in the first when you buy it? So it just goes to show, when you buy a Tesla vehicle, whether it's $40,000 or $50,000, the actual price tag, if you want to use all of the features, is going to, get you to spend to $60,000 or even $70,000 if you really want to pimp up your vehicle here. Now, is that well worth a product wherein they're going to charge you, on a subscription, which is, I'm very anti against that, so to speak. Now, obviously, the features that they're offering here, that's why they're charging a lot for it, is the navigation for autopilot, okay, auto lane change, auto park, you can summon it, again, traffic light and stop sign control, and the full self-driving is a very misleading term. If you notice, in all of their features that they just mentioned, it's autopilot, it's not self-driving itself, meaning it cannot do all of the features, because if it is a autonomous vehicles, then it needs a lot more complexities in its features that it's offering right now. That's why I'm very apprehensive that they're marketing it as a full self-driving vehicle here. What's interesting here, if you cannot afford the $10,000 bills, you can pay as you go subscription, so to speak. You can just imagine, Netflix is offering that in their vehicles, if they have a vehicle cars, or when Toyota or even Ford is offering, the services. Anyway, so obviously, would consumers be inclined to buy this? Obviously, again, the marketing ploy or selling point for Tesla here is that it's full self-driving, which is very dangerous wording that they're using here. And the fact that they've already released the beta software or V9 software for early access, then obviously a lot of people are subscribing to it. And obviously, you have to push for a software update to access it in your mobile app. So paying for almost $200 a month, excluding taxes, to experience the features as mentioned earlier, is it worthwhile your endeavor? And what's interesting here is you have to pay an additional $1,500 for a computer upgrade. So again, you can just imagine the additional cost that you're going to incur for every time you need an additional features that you're going to do. So later on, what if they're going to add another feature? They're going to charge you more and more and even more. Now, obviously, for the business, it's tremendous, right? But as a consumer, that's terrible, right? You can just imagine, what if a smartphone maker like Samsung or Apple were to only feature, let's say, touchscreen capability, then you have to buy the camera module so you can get a better experience here. So you have to pay more. or let's say a feature you don't see that Apple or Samsung or even Android there to do in their platform, that they charge additional more for every feature that you want to have in your smartphone. But the car maker can do that. That's where I'm very hesitant in their decision to push for this. So obviously it benefits the company tremendously, but obviously for consumers, that's, I don't know. I'm really against for this one. But again, at the end of the day, if the consumer pays for it, then meaning the model does work for the consumer product. But again, if accidents were to occur, people's lives were lost because of the feature that you're using. So rather than you're paying more for it, then you're going to be caught in an accident or be the cause of the accident there. It just doesn't add up. Are going to wait until some severe case or accident happen before we even try to address it, because the way I see it, it's going to be a problem in the near future, and we have to address it sooner rather than later here. Anyway, finally, so not all doom and gloom for the Tesla company. Even though they're having difficulties with those features that, as I mentioned earlier, one of the good things that they've been promoting now, or has been dealing with other car manufacturers, is the charging capability. Obviously, one of the main weaknesses of a battery powered vehicle is its ability to recharge its battery cells. Now, normally in a gas powered, you just go to a gas station, fill up for a few minutes, then you can go on your way. In this case, if you don't go to a Tesla Supercharger, which could take less than an hour, it's still a long time. If you were to charge at home, it takes an 8-hour cycle to be able to fully charge your vehicle. So obviously, you'll still rely on charges similar to how your smartphone would look like now. If a smartphone were to drain out the battery, it's easy enough, right? But if your car were to run out of battery, how are you going to move it, right? It's not as if it can, automatically charge itself, or it has solar powered on its rooftop, so that it can always try to charge incrementally so that it does not run out of power up to 0%. Anyway, according to electric.com, again, Tesla is planning to open superchargers to other automakers, which is, I think, a great idea for them. Especially they have the technology, so car makers have to adopt whatever port that the Tesla is using here, so that it could charge any electric vehicles here. And obviously, the technology is still a long way of reducing it to less than 30 or even less than 15 minutes or even less than 5 minutes. When they reach to that point, so that, I don't know, they could follow similar suit how Xiaomi is doing with their charging capability, being able to charge a phone in less than 10 minutes. Now, obviously, a smartphone has smaller battery requirement. So in this case, for a electric vehicle, you need a very powerful charging capability here. Anyway, so opening up, they're open to its supercharger network to other automakers. Now, obviously, it makes sense, because if other car makers are reliant on their charging station, which they could charge a lot for their services, and obviously charging network, or the supercharger network for Tesla is extensive and vast compared to other car makers here, not just in the United States, but in other regions as well. So Tesla obviously developed its own network from the ground up, which is obviously based on necessity, because how can you sell an electric vehicle if there's no charging charging facility, so that you could go anywhere and not worry about if your battery is running down. And so finding a fast way to charge your vehicle is important here. After a decade of deploying their supercharger, Tesla has now over 25,000 superchargers nationwide, over 2,700 stations around the world. So, which is a plenty. Now, obviously, more is always better. And take note, in a supercharging station, you don't need to hire anyone here like a regular gas station. You just need the station itself. Ideally, if there's no one damaging it, you could use it, plug it in, wait a bit, and then leave when it's fully charged. Now, the question here is, the agreement on sharing the cost. Now, obviously, Tesla has the leverage here to be able to command a high fee if they so chooses, so that they'll be forced to utilize it, so make it more convenient for consumers here who owns a Tesla vehicle here. And the key here is obviously is creating the proprietary network similar to how Apple does with their data cable. There was no standard, so obviously Tesla was the first one to make a standardized connector for its long-range electric vehicles here. So it has to be it's fairly small connector for both low and high power charging here. So obviously, uh, it has different requirements depending on the car's makeup here. So whether you're, let's say, for a smartphone, whether you're using an Android or iOS, or in this case, whether it's a Tesla, Ford, Toyota, or any car manufacturers that offers electric vehicle here. And obviously that's going to make a lot of headways in encouraging more car owners to switch to electric vehicles here. So integration is always the key here, and especially for non-Tesla owners here. Now, I'm not excited about the electric vehicle per se, but the full self-driving, I'm very interested in that one. Even though it's not reached to that point yet, but the capability here, imagine you're driving here in the metro in Manila. It will not work for the immediate future because the lanes are not motorists are not very organized, and they have their own set of rules. So you can just imagine if Tesla can survive here in our city roads, it can manage it in other areas as well here. And obviously the adaptability of the supercharger to other vehicles would make a long ways to gaining a substantial traction, not just for Tesla but for the electric vehicles as a whole here in the industry here. Well, anyway, so I know though I've been bashing a lot of Tesla lately, but for me, if they offer a great tremendous product, which they're trying to, in fairness, but it's still a long ways to go. And obviously the worst case scenario here is if there were no lives at stake, the fact that you're driving a vehicle that can be catastrophic in terms of not just harming the driver itself but other vehicles as well. Even worse, even bystanders who, let's say, for some reasons, let's say if you're driving an EV vehicle, then a kid were to cross the street by accident, right? Can the vehicle stop in time? And obviously, if you have irresponsible drivers who just rely on the technology rather than managing it, because it's still not yet reached that point. So, I'll keep everyone updated. Hopefully, they'll make more headways as to not just keep on pushing for more vehicles in the market. And the vehicle itself is one thing, but the technology side in terms of the full self-driving is another critical issue that's not going to go away anytime soon, as you keep on seeing more people venturing into this aspect and testing out the limits of the vehicle, which is kind of scary if you think about it. Imagine if they were doing that in an airplane. There would be a lot of accidents waiting to happen, even much worse. So that's why we have to be cautious and excited at the same time. Anyway, thanks again for watching. That concludes our discussion for today. Come back again on Wednesday for more business update. And if you enjoyed this type of today's video, whether you like it or not, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button to help support the channel. As always, oh yeah, before I forget, if you're interested in checking out the full article in today's topic, I leave in the link in the description below. Again, as always, I'll see you in the next one. Take care.